because we are qualified for that.
Yeah.
We are eligible to do that.
No, I go there once in a while.
Yeah, temple under they have big insurances and coverage and
Even when you do a yoga class, I guess it's a liability of some sort. If somebody gets
so that's why we consent.
Oh, you do get that
Of course.
type of thing?
Of course, any yoga we get a consent, and we have an insurance for the teachers also.
Oh, you do.
A liability insurance.
Oh, okay.
Because
Yeah,
we don't want to that especially in this country.
It's been so bright. The screen is so bright, the words are not clear.
Let's start. We have a hard stop at 8:30 today. So my next project is to put all these materials in one place. So by 30th it will be done.
All the Vedanta stuff.
All the Vedanta. Gita is up to date.
Yeah,
two more presentations.
Vedanta videos we have to.
Yeah, that's it. Vedanta videos and materials in one folder. Gita it is there. Just prioritizing Gita and putting everything. You have access to Gita, right?
Yeah, Gita.
Okay. So Gita we are doing in a very, very systematic way. Okay, so last week was very, yeah, I think it started.
No. Oops.
I think we might have changed the mode to video.
Yeah, I think it's not set to video. Yeah, this thing doesn't have a home button.
Yeah, this is like get used to.
This is the level, yeah.
Just please be careful that holding stuff.
Can I help you? Touch it. Is it
Now, if you
sensitive?
just hit it, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So now
Once you used to without home button, it's very hard to use home button because my work phone has the home button, so I find it difficult. That's it.
Yeah.
that's what technology they're coming across this flip phones, right?
Yeah, that's good. I mean, there are the new, supposedly the next version of iPhone will have no buttons, even on the sides. So no, yeah.
Is it?
Yeah. Because Samsung is going that way, no buttons. So that's what iPhone also wants to copy now.
Interesting. Okay. Okay, so we don't need a recap because the last entire session was recap. But in one sentence, what we have been doing is we were trying to see what is not me. In one sentence, that is what we have been doing. We are not the three bodies we identified. We are not the major functionality of the body. And we are not the different states experienced by us. Then who are we? Right? That is the topic. So important question is, who am I truly? Right? That's what. Who am I? Please. Who am I truly? We saw that we are not the body, we are not the mind, we are not the causal body, we are not the panchakoshas, and we are not, means different states of experience gives us different experiences. Dream, I am experiencing the external world. Sorry, in waking state, I am experiencing the external world, whereas in dream, I am experiencing what? My own memory or my own mental projections. And in deep sleep, I'm experiencing the lack of any other experience. So it proved us a lot, right? What we tried, means, if you remember, I was talking about two concepts. One is called the identification, and the other one is called attachment. What was the problem we have been discussing earlier? I take some of my gadgets as myself. That is the core problem. I take my body as myself. So what happens? I think my longevity is limited to the lifespan of my body, right? Every constraint the body has, right? Because the body goes through changes. And every change I take as myself, I got changed. And eventually I'm afraid that what is going to happen to me?
I'll die.
I'll die. So this is a problem. And on the other hand, what we were trying to see was body is definitely the most important gadget given to us. But it's a gadget. That doesn't mean that I won't take care of it. I was joking, right? Some people take care of their phone more than themselves. So,
Definitely cars, yes.
correct. Cars. That's what I was joking the other day. Like every time when you go to a mall, you will see at the end there will be one car, and that will be a brand new car.
Yeah.
So much afraid of dents. So this is what it is. So who am I? That is the important question. So basically we are defining the self, the term self here. So far we were trying to see what I am not. So today we are going to see who am I? So the first thing is self is the common term used in English to refer Atma. But as with any other English word, this has a lot of problem. For a lot of people, self means different things. Right? That's a problem. So sometimes it has some Western influence. I'm not saying that it is bad or anything like that. I'm just saying that in common Western thinking, self means sometimes they refer to, for example, know thyself. That is a common phrase coined by Aristotle. What exactly he meant? He was not referring to Atma. He was referring to your own mind, your own feelings, your own emotions, etc. Which is correct. But the point I was just trying to make here is that when you hear or see the word self in many books, it has different meaning. Depending upon the context, you have to make sure that the correct meaning is given. So sometimes psychology also uses the word self. Psychology uses the word self. If you go to a therapist, they think about the self as the unconscious mind where all the programming is done. So that's another meaning of self. But what we are talking here means I put one sentence here that is very important, the last one. Whenever we talk about a terminology in Vedanta, we need to understand the Vedantic definition. For example, consciousness we already defined, right? What is consciousness? It is that by which I am aware of my thoughts. That is what is the consciousness in Vedanta. But if you go to a medical profession, it's a property of my mind, which is completely different from the Vedantic definition. So here in Vedanta, the Atma, means that is the word you use, Atma. This is very important, this definition. It is not the body, it is not the mind, and the last part is very important. We are going to see this in Bhagavad Gita exactly like this. It is not a part, it is not a property, it is not a product of the body and mind. Beautiful definition. It is not a part of the body, it is not a property of the body, and it is not a product of the body. Self. It is completely independent. That is, means today what I'm trying to do is the theoretical definition, and next week we'll talk about the identification problem.
So,
Yeah.
would soul be more closely associated with Atma than self?
No, soul is not Atma. So we discussed that in the last week. Soul in Vedanta we loosely translated as subtle body. Soul is subtle body.
Soul is in the Western word that is.
word.
I import it to Indian context, it just doesn't work with our Hindu.
Yeah.
Vedic.
It has a different meaning.
So, of the three bodies, the physical body, the subtle body, and the causal body, the self would be the subtle body then, I guess,
No.
right? No.
The self is neither physical body, nor subtle body, nor causal body.
Okay.
So remember that example I was giving in the Bhagavad Gita class. In the Bhagavad Gita class, I said the closest example, even in the Vedanta class, I was using that same example last week. The closest example is a computer. There is a physical hardware, something that you can touch and feel, right? And which has memory, everything. Then there is something called subtle stuff, which we call it as software.
Right.
You cannot touch and feel. The other day I gave one example, right? I told like if you have a 2 terabytes of hard disk in your computer and you store 2 TBs of video. 2 TGBs of video means, if it is in standard definition, it could be the life duration of an individual.
Right.
So you weigh the hard disk before you store the data, and after storing the data, you weigh, because the entire lifespan is recorded and stored there. What would be the difference in size? Have you heard a famous experiment one scientist was trying to prove in Europe? You might have heard that, Vijay, right? A Christian-oriented scientist was trying to prove that soul is there. Of course, there the concept is soul. So what he was trying to do was, he tried to take some animals. You can Google it. It is there.
Sealed environment.
Yeah. So he took an means rat or something like that. He took the weight and then he killed the rat and tried to weigh. What was his thought?
That will weigh less.
The weight will be less. But I was just contradicting that with this example. So if you store that data in the hard disk will weigh exactly the same thing. But you accumulated a huge volume of data. So that is the means. In my experience, I haven't seen a better example to differentiate between Sthula Sharira and Sukshma Sharira, like hardware and software. Now the next question is, right? So this software, I talked about this also last week. The software gives the functionality or the personality for the hardware. Right now, this is a word processor. If you give this to your child, the personality changes to a game. And if you give to somebody else, it will be totally different. So the software running in that hardware is going to determine the personality, behavior, everything of that hardware. Of course, how the software expresses itself in the external world will be constrained by the hardware. If you don't have a good speaker system, even if you produce good music, but it won't be manifested. So if your physical body is not strong or it has some defects, even if the subtle body is powerful, it may not express itself externally. Third point we said was, right, if you remember that detailed analysis we did last week. Let this be very clear, because if this is clear, Vedanta is clear. If the physical body is not there, the subtle body cannot manifest.
True.
Just think about this hardware and software example, you'll get it. If you have the best software in the world, if there is no hardware, if the monitor is crashed, what happens? It's useless. So like that, the physical body is extremely important for the subtle body or the soul to manifest. Now the question is, if there is no power, what is the use of having the physical body and subtle body? So there has to be something behind the physical body, the hardware, and the subtle body software to enliven it. And that is what in this traditional example, it's electricity. And how many electricities are there? And let's say that now we are making this as a computer lab. 15 people are there. This would be a Lenovo Yoga. You have a Surface, and he may have a iPad. The other person may have a sophisticated what do you call that? GMP, GVP, or what? There's that process, the graphical stuff, the high-end processor, whatever it is.
The graphical card.
Yeah. So it means all that is powered by the same power supply. And if you really look into the electricity, what happens? You have two plug, right? So what exactly is electricity? It is the flow of electrons.
Right.
So the electrons means, I'm just loosely translating it. Electrons will come here, go back. The same electrons can potentially get into the other one.
Right.
So there is only one electricity that gives power and life to all the computers. Some computer may be made in China, some might be made in US. So like that, the human being, we might be made in India.
Right.
Means all our kids will be made in US. But the power that making them who they are, that is common. And that is exactly what is Atma. So there is only one Atma. So now go back to the definition.
Right.
So Atma means, look at that hardware, software, power example. By the way, every example has its own limitation. So don't hold to that example, because example is a model.
It's a metaphor, yeah?
It's a metaphor.
Yeah.
So the other day I was giving that ocean, wave, and water example. So somebody was telling that some waves are larger, so it will have more water. So that's just an limitation of the example. You cannot take the example as it is. Correct.
It cannot be actual situation always.
It's not the exact match. It is
Yeah.
similes.
Yeah.
Similes are not, because when you say that, oh king, your face is shining like a moon, that means the king's face is not the moon. So it's just a logic used to convey a message. So here the point is, in this particular example, electricity is not the hardware, not the software. It is not a part, property, product of the hardware and software.
Right.
Exactly like that. There is one Atma, whatever you call, because just unlearn the concept of Atma you have in your mind. Because even in Gita class you heard, right? So many people are asking like, how it is there? How is that there is only one Atma, multiple Atmas are there? What they think as Atma is not Atma, that is the subtle body. Typically, what people think as Atma is that which transmigrates from one body to the other. That is subtle body, Sukshma Sharira, or loosely translated as soul. Atma means something that do not have any change at all. Something that was always there. Something that is not dependent upon anything else. The hardware and software. The software is definitely depending upon hardware also, and the electricity, right? If the hardware on the other side, it is dependent upon electricity and software. Whereas the electricity is completely independent, because the existence of the electricity is independent. It can manifest as sound in a speaker. It can manifest as bulb, light in a bulb. But electricity is electricity. In its presence, the other equipment starts functioning. But for electricity to exist, nothing is required. So like that, Krishna is telling in the Gita, Avinashito tatvithim ena sarvamidam taram vinasham avyasyasya na kaschit kartumarhasi. There is a reality called absolute reality, and that is what is Atma. And that Atma is giving existence and consciousness to every being. So we are going to see that one by one. So let's look at this definition. This is from an Upanishad. Okay. So this is very powerful statement. Atma is not the body, not the mind, not a part, not a property, and not a product of the body or the mind. If you just keep that example of hardware, software, and power, this will be very clear. So what is then Atma? Let's.
Enough of what is not,
Yeah.
then what is.
Yeah. So we took almost 10 weeks to establish what is not Atma. Correct?
Right.
So now we are going to see what is Atma. So the self or Atma is not something apart from us. That is the first thing. When I feel that I exist, it is because of Atma. So it is not something apart from me. So keep that in mind. Again, This is going to be parokshanubhuti now, meaning indirect experience. Once you do the practices, what happens? This will become an experiential reality. So right now, let's understand theoretically. So first thing is, Atma is not something apart from us. The Atma is referred as something who you are. So I put Yaska's definition. Means the word Atma in Sanskrit literally means essence. Essentially who you are. Essentially who you are, that is what Atma means. Right? The essence of a golden ring is what? Gold. The essence of a wave is what? Water. The essence of a clay pot.
Okay.
So there is something called independent cause, and the other one is dependent. Correct? One is called cause, the other one is called effect. So in Vedanta, there is 3 laws of causation. It is not the laws of causation in physics, but in Vedanta we call there is 3 laws of causation. I'll just enumerate it. The first one is, just listen, this is very simple. Every effect, for every effect there is a cause. That is the first rule. That means every golden ring or the golden ornament has a cause called gold. Second rule, effects, plural, effects are nothing but the cause itself in a different form. Do you agree? The gold ornaments are nothing but gold in a different form. Now the third rule, Swami Chinmayananda was very popular. He used to discuss this. He has a beautiful talk called Logic of Spirituality. In that talk, he used to enumerate this a lot. The third law is what? If you take the cause from the effect, if you remove the cause from the effect, what remains?
Nothing.
Nothing. So the body, the mind, everything is nothing but a manifestation of an absolute reality. And then what? Effects are nothing but the body, mind is means it's a transfer, means everything is derived from the absolute reality. And if you take Atma, nothing exists. So the definition of Atma, I'm just deviating from the slide, I'm just going to tell. The most popular definition of Atma is called Satchidananda. Have you heard of that word? Sat, Chit, Ananda. What does that mean? The 3 dimensions of Atma. I cannot say that it is attribute. It is 3 dimensions of Atma. Sat literally means what? Existence. What is existence? What is the existence of a gold ornament? What is that X factor that gives existence to gold ornaments? Gold, right? What is that X factor which gives existence to water? Sorry, waves. Water. What is that X factor that gives existence to gold, means the clay pot? Clay. Why? Because the fundamental building block of that object is this. In other words, the existence of, means if I say this, please see if you understand. The existence of a gold, the gold ornament do not have an independent existence. It is completely dependent upon what? Gold for its existence. So we say that the universe do not have an independent existence. The existence of the universe is dependent upon a fundamental building block of the universe. And that fundamental building block of the universe is known as Atma or Self, Paramatma or Brahman. So many, this is called absolute reality. Everything else is relative reality. See, this table is a relative reality. But the absolute reality is what? What exactly is the fundamental building block by which this table is made? So one Upanishad called the Mundaka Upanishad, it starts with this question. The student tells, oh teacher, see, just like, what exactly is that fundamental building block, knowing which everything else can be known? Kasminno vijnade sarvamidam vijnadam bhavati. Then the whole Upanishad is an elaboration of that. So this is what is Atma. Then what is the second characteristics? We said existence, and the second one is called consciousness. What is consciousness? What is our definition? That by which the thoughts are, we are aware of our mental events. If you really remember, we defined what is a mental event in the previous classes, right? What is a mental event? Last week I was asking. So you are sitting here and I'm seeing you. Exactly who am I seeing? Really speaking, I am seeing a mental event created in my mind. That is the direct perception. Secondary perception is what? My eyes capture your image. And it is like it means this is a lens. The lens will focus that into another instrument called retina. And what that retina does, it converts that into electrical signal and it goes to the mind. So in the mind, every external event we are seeing, it is represented as a mental event. And there has to be something in our system that is aware of this mental event. And that is what is consciousness. That is what is giving us sentiency. And this is what is Atma. That is the second characteristic. And the third characteristic dimension of the Atma is called Ananda. Ananda means what?
Happiness.
Happiness. Unlimited happiness. It is not bliss. Bliss means it's an external experience. Ananda means where exactly is the true source of happiness lying?
No worries.
What is the definition of happiness? Means I quoted modern psychology in the Bhagavad Gita class. I quoted the exact sentence. So in modern psychology, positive psychology, they define happiness as a particular state of mind, which is relaxed, which is in a very, very calm state. When the mind goes to that state, the feeling you experience is what is happiness. Correct? So what is the usual problem? The mind is always like that. Whatever we see, think, or imagine, it won't allow the mind to get into that state. So when you go to a movie, what is going to happen? It means you feel happy because the mind is quiet and it is getting closer to that state. When the mind gets into that particular state, again in Gita class we said, every emotion we experience is a chemistry.
Right.
It's a biochemistry. So what exactly is that thermostat which makes your mind into that particular state? It is your brain, it is your mind. But because of the manufacturing defects, we always get different chemistry, which we do not want. And that is what is forcing us to change the chemistry through alcohols and through medications, etc. What does the alcohol does? It just changes the chemistry of your system. And that gives you some elevated contentment. Patanjali Yoga Sutra, 3rd chapter, Patanjali himself talks about this. You don't need those things. You don't need an external thing to intoxicate you. If you know Atma, if you are connected with Atma, that is the supreme most reality. Think and make sure that it makes sense to you, because every experience of happiness, you think that, okay, my daughter gives me happiness. Whenever she comes in front of me, I feel happy. It's an indirect cause. It is just a trigger to make a state transition of my mind into that ideal state. The happiness is that ideal state. But certain external event, like depending upon our likes and dislikes, we feel that, okay, this event is going to trigger my mind. So the nature of the Atma is happiness. Now the problem is what? Why are we not experiencing that happiness? In Vedanta, we call it as Adhyasa. We are going to talk about that next week. But a simple example. The most traditional, I'll bring that crystal next week. The most traditional example in Vedanta is a crystal. If I keep a crystal here in front of me, what would be the color of the crystal? It will be my color of the shirt. But you see the crystal as superimposed by the color of my cloth. But is that crystal affected? So when sadness prevails my mind, what happens? Because of the wrong identification, I take myself as sad. There is two things. One is sadness I'm seeing. I'm witnessing sadness. Second thing is I am sad. So in the Gita class, I said it's okay to feel sad. But the problem is what?
To be sad.
Being in sadness is the problem. Feeling sadness is completely fine. Being in that state is the problem. So Atma is completely independent of all that. Whether it is pleasure, pain, happiness, any emotions, all that is mental events. And Atma is completely away from that. Swami Chinmayananda, he loved powerful language. Sometimes he used to use very powerful language. That was his style. So he used to say, the sunlight that illumines, the sunlight will not get holy when it shines the Bhagavad Gita. Right? And the sunlight won't get defiled when it falls on a
Dirt, something like that.
yeah, in a dirt or a like a third rate book. The sun remains unaffected. The movie that comes to the screen, one movie would be a terrible tragedy movie. The next one would be completely what? Comedy. The light that illumines that film, it won't get affected. So happiness and sadness as our mental events comes to my mind. So Krishna this is exactly what we're going to cover in the Gita next week. So initially in the second chapter, Krishna said what? You don't have to worry. You have an existence after the death. If the biggest fear is fear of death, there was not a time when you are not there, I was not there, all these people were not there. And there won't be a time when we cease to exist. So that is negated. And in the next verse, he is going to say, that doesn't mean that you are not subjected to sorrow. You are subjected to sorrow. And why you are subjected to sorrow? Because as long as you are living in this body, the body is subjected to change. It tells matras prashastu kaunteya shita ushna sukha dukkada agama paino anitya. They come and go. And he asks us to tam titikshasva, endure them. Endure them means not by cursing. The titiksha has a definition, right? We talked about that. Sahanam sarva dukkhana apratikara purvakam chinta vilaparhitam. This is the definition of titiksha in Vivek Chudamani. Whenever there is a difficult situation, you are enduring them. How? Chinta vilaparhitam. We also endure, but we will curse everybody. But that's not titiksha. That type of strength will come only from knowing the true Atma. No other teaching can come. So interestingly, means I told you I was studying the Shankaracharya's commentary. So Shankaracharya apparently do not comment the first chapter and second chapter up to verse 10. And before he starts the commentary of verse 11, he writes one paragraph. One paragraph means 3 sentences. He said, from chapter 1 verse 2 to chapter 2 verse 9 has to be interpreted not as a problem of Arjuna. He says, right, it's not, Krishna was not addressing Arjuna's problem. Krishna was addressing the problem that this person is subject to sorrow. There's a huge difference. What is going to make him subjected to sorrow is a variable from time to time. Today it might be money, tomorrow it might be health, day after tomorrow it might be the behavior of the kids, whatever it is. But you are subjected to sorrow, you are vulnerable. And Shankara defines what exactly is the root cause. Atma avidya. You do not know yourself. When you don't know yourself, you are subjected to sorrow. So this is why this Sat Chit Ananda is very important. And let me go to just one more comment. Yaska, the famous grammarian. Yaska is the one who composed what? The other day I made a comment in the class, the Bhagavad Gita class. I said, whenever you look up the meaning for a particular subject, you have to look at the dictionary written for that subject.
Right.
If you remember, I quoted the example. You're reading a computer book and you're seeing a table. If you go to an English dictionary and look the table meaning, you get a totally different meaning.
Right.
So anything connected with Veda or the Vedic studies, you have to refer the dictionary called Niruttam. And the author of that book is called Yaska, the sage Yaska. So he defines means Atman as the pervading principle or pervading principle, the organism in which other elements are united and ultimate sentient principle, consciousness. This is the definition he has given, just for a scholar perspective. So the approximate definition of Atma, because nobody can define Atma. Why? Because we are constrained by the time and space. We are limited here, and we are trying to define something beyond time and space. That's why when we defined all the bodies in the Gita class, somebody asked, can you give a precise definition of Atma like this? It's impossible.
Atma is something by which you know everything,
Everything else.
right? So
It's impossible to define.
yeah.
But a closest definition, this is from the Upanishad, and this definition is created by Swami Paramartha. I love it. That's why I quoted that. So Atma or the self is the non-dual consciousness. Non-dual means what?
So,
That's the only one. So when the other religion says there is one God, we accept. But we enhance that by saying that there is only God. Everything in the universe, Isha Vasyam Idam Sarvam. That is the first line of Isha Upanishad. Everything in this world, whether it is the plant, animal, and human, sentient and insentient, everything is nothing but a manifestation of that one power, Ishvara. So that is why it is not dual. The unchanging, it is not subjected to change at all. Because change is possible. How? See, I can change the length of this table. Because what? There is a scope for change. For Atma, there is no place or there is no time. Atma is not there. So how can it change? It cannot move. Movement is possible only when I can move to that table. Why? Because I am not there right now. There is not a place Atma is not there. So how can it move? So Krishna brilliantly explains this. Achedyohyam adahyoyam akledyo shoshyaye vajaha nityaha sarvagataha stanur achaloyam sanatana. This is how he defines Atma. Nityaha meaning what?
Okay.
Nitya means it was there in the past and it will be there in the future.
Kala Abaditam.
Kala abaditam. Means abaditam. Shloka number. I think it is 17 or 18. We'll see that. Nainam chindandi shastrani, nainam dahati pavagaha, nachainam kledayantyapo, nashoshayati marudaha. It is not subjected to destruction by any means of destruction. Then he tells achedyohyam. It cannot be divided into two, because how can you divide something into two? Because there is a space in between. Here, you cannot divide at all. Everywhere it is pervading. Think about that, the magnanimity of that. Achedyohyam adahyoyam. You cannot burn it. Akledyoyam. You cannot make it wet. Evacha nityaha. All it exists all period of time. Sarvagataha. All pervading. Everywhere it pervades. By the way, all pervading is who? Vishnu. What is the definition of Vishnu? Vyapadayati iti Vishnu. That which perverts everywhere is called Vishnu. So when we see Vishnu, don't think about Raja Ravivarma's figure. Vishnu means that principle which pervades everywhere, which is the Atma. That is what is Vishnu. So if you really take every name of the Sahasranama, you will see that it's a pointer pointing to this Atma. Vishwam, meaning what? Anybody know Vishnu Sahasranama? Vishwam Vishnu Vashatkaru Bhuda Bhavya Bhavat Prabhu, Bhuda Krit Bhavu, Bhudatma, Bhuda Bhavana. This is the first stanza. Vishwam means he whose manifestation is the entire universe. Vishnu means he who pervades everywhere. Vashatkara means all the Vedic mantras. Whenever I pray to Agni, Vayu, any deity, ultimately that prayer goes to the supreme reality, to whom we receive that ultimate prayer, all the prayers. Whether you pray to him or her or whatever it is, ultimately he who receives all the prayer, it is called Vashatkara. Then the next one is Bhuda Bhavya Bhavat Prabhu. Meaning the Lord of past, present, and the future, who is completely independent of that. It's so beautiful. You chant Vishnu Sahasranama without knowing the meaning. The Vishnu Sahasranama is a wonderful Vedantic text. We studied a little bit, right? Remember? So yeah. So let's go to the definition. So non-dual consciousness, because it is the awareness in yourself. Non-dual, unchanging, independently existing. See, for the body to exist, you need Atma, because the matter, eventually, the fundamental particle of matter is nothing but self. So the gold ornaments cannot exist without the gold. Like that, nothing in the universe can exist without Atma. So Ramakrishna Paramahamsa used to tell, it's like the one in front of that zero. When you have 0, there is no value. But when you put 1 in front of that, it becomes 10. So the presence of Atma gives some value to everybody. Without Atma, no existence. Then what? Unchanged, independently existing, eternal. Eternal means what?
Doesn't end. There's no finish.
In math language, differential with respect to time is 0.
Infinite.
Eternal, indivisible. Why? Because everything is that. You cannot divide that. It is impossible. Then infinite. Infinite is a big word. What is the definition of infinite? I told in math, you have different types of infinities. Between 0 and 1, if you take that real number, that is one set of infinity. I think Kontu, he defined 3 or 4 types of infinity. But in Vedanta, when we say it is precise, the definition is very clear. What is that? Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma. That is the definition. Anantam. That Anantam is defined as 3 forms of infinity. They say the first one is Desha, Kala, Vastu, Paricheda. That is the definition of infinity here. Desha, Kala, Vastu, Paricheda. Independent of space. Meaning what? Not constrained by space. I am constrained by space because I am here now, so I am not there in India now. Because I am constrained by space. So Atma is everywhere. So not constrained by space. So that one level of infinity. 3 aspects he said. Like Desha, Kala, Vastu, Paricheda. Second is that Kala. I am here in this time frame. So 50 means 100 years back, I was not there. Or 50 years back, I was not there. After 50 years, I may not be there. Or 100 years, I may not be there. So I'm constrained or conditioned by time. Atma, it's not like that. Third one is what? Vastu. This is a computer. That means this is not a fan. Being an object, when you say something is A, you can always say that it is not a complement. This is a chair. That means it's not a table. The moment you are saying that, the moment you put certain attributes to certain thing, it means a limitation. Being an object is a limitation because it is not the other objects. Here, it is not even an object. Everything is that. So, Desha, Kala, Vastu, Paricheda. That is the meaning of that infinite. Then, imperceptible essence of everything. Imperceptible essence means it is the essence of this table, it is the essence of this mouse, it is the essence of me, it is the consciousness of me. But what is the biggest wonder? I see everything else, but I don't see the Atma. that is imperceptible essence of everything, ever free from action and experience. It is not dependent upon a particular action. It is not dependent upon a particular experience. It is free from that. So this is out of all the descriptions of Atma, I see this as the most comprehensible definition. It is given by Swami Paramatma. So now the question is what? So what? What does it matter to me? So we need to see that next week. Why this knowledge or how this knowledge is going to help me? That's what we have to see. But couple of takeaways here is, right? So we need to understand that in every jiva has three dimensions. One is a physical body, which can be experienced by me as well as other people, which is the key instrument I use to transact with the world outside, has a shorter duration, meaning 0 to 120 years. That is one dimension, which is called physical body. And the second component is called a subtle body or soul, which gives the personality to this physical body, which will not die when the physical body dies, right? And depending upon the karma, it transmigrates to another body. Remember, we had a long discussion about the different types of karma, Sanchita karma, Agami karma, all those in the Gita class we discussed it. So that there is some other aspect in me which do not come to an end when the body comes to an end, which transmigrates to another body, and that is called the subtle body. And there is a third component, and even the subtle body has a beginning and an end. The beginning of subtle body is when? The beginning of the cycle. The end of the subtle body is the end of the cycle. And there is the third component, Atma, which do not have any change at all. So when the body dies, physical body dies, what happens to Atma? Nothing.
Nothing.
When the subtle body dismantles, what happens to Atma? Nothing. The Atma is stable, it is present always. And the next question is, how many Atmas are there? We are 6 people sitting here. How many Atmas are there? Only one Atma.
So even when the physical body and the subtle body was made or moved on, the Atma was already there.
Atma, it won't change at all, because it's like a drop from the ocean. It won't make any difference. And everything exists in Atma. Everything is Atma. And the whole Vedanta tells, right, there is a differentiated state of the universe. After the first cycle, what is going to happen? The universe will go to a seed form, undifferentiated state, avyakta. Remember, we studied the first sentence of Shankaracharya's commentary, Narayana paro vyakta andam andasya sambhavam, andasya andasya me loka saptat deepacha medini. This was the first statement of Shankaracharya on the Gita, right? Narayana means what? He who resides in all objects. Look at that definition, Atma. He who resides in all objects is called Narayana. So what is that in all the objects? Atma, or the Brahman, or the Ishvara, Paramatma. So that Paramatma, Narayana, he is Paro Vyakta Andam Andasya Sambhavam. He is Param, meaning he is subtler than the undifferentiated universe. Even the undifferentiated universe comes out of Narayana. Then he tells, from the undifferentiated universe, the differentiated universe will manifest. And in that differentiated universe, we are living in Medini, Earth, with its 7 continents. Sapta Deepacha Medini. So this is how Shankaracharya starts with a big bang, right? So just for a information sharing, whenever you write a commentary or a bhashya or any such book, you start with a Mangalacharana. You start with a Mangala Sloka. There are 3 types of Mangalacharana. The first one is called, typically we called Ashirvada Mangalam. Ashirvada Mangalam means you start with a
Thanking all the gods and your gurus.
You are saying that, okay, let everybody be good. Classic example is Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. Sarvesham Sustir Bhavati. All that is example of this Ashirvada Mangalam. Then there is a second form of Mangalam, which is called Namaskara Mangalam. meaning you're bowing down to a deity for his prayers. Saraswati Namastubhyam. Varade Kamarupani Vidyarambham Karishyami Siddhit Bhavati Me Sabha. Or we can say that, what is that? Like Sachidananda Rupaya Vishwutpatyadi Hedave Tapatraya Vinashaya Sri Krishnaya Namo. I bow down to a deity. And the third Mangalam is called Vastu Rupa Mangalam. Vastu means the truth. It won't bow down to anybody. It won't give a Ashurvada. It will just make a statement of fact. And this is a statement of fact, Shankaracharya said. Being a Vedantic book, he started like that. But again, it comes back to the same point. And the approximate definition of Atma, we said that it is all-pervading, non-dual, ekam eva adhyutiya. That is the definition. Ekam, one, and he is not satisfied, Rishi. He tells non-dually one. In the commentary, the teachers tells what? If you say that there is one Vijay sitting here, but if you really look at Vijay, you can see different parts in the body. Atma is not like that. It constitutes only one, because hand is different from leg. So even they don't leave any trace of doubt in descriptions. So that is why ekam eva adhyutiya. So this is the definition of Atma. And so the three dimensions are therefore in our personality. So now the question is, what exactly we identify ourselves with? If we identify, because that is what the next week's discussion. If we identify with the body, then all the body's problems are your problem. If I identify with my car, what is going to happen?
All the car problems are.
Yeah, it means if somebody asks, means like when did you born? I will say that maybe last year, and it's this make, that make, all the attributes you will see. But without that car, I cannot function in the world. I cannot commute. So car is absolutely must have. Body is absolutely must have. But the body is not you. Now the subtle body, the software, that is also not you. The essential you, because what was the logic we used in the Drigdrishya Viveka?
You see.
Observer,
Observed.
right? We said if the experiencer is different from the experiencer.
Right.
Why I am saying that you are sitting here? If I go to the outer space, what is going to happen?
I'm not there.
No, you are moving in a very, you are spinning and you are moving.
Okay.
Correct?
Right.
So if I am experiencing a change, relatively I am away from that. So you are experiencing all the thoughts in your mind. So some entity is observing. What exactly is the observer? Observer is always different from the observed. That is the fundamental principle here. So if you really think about it, we started with a note that we are trying to understand who we are. So for that process, we employed a powerful teaching methodology of the Vedanta, which is called Drigdrishya Viveka. And Drigdrishya Viveka, the basic logic is what? The observer is different from the observed. So who is the observer? We spent a lot of time in that. Initially, we thought that we are the observer and the external world where my nervous system ends, that is the observed. And then we found out that that is not correct. We did some scientific analysis. We did all the phantom limbs and everything, remember? And then we found out that, okay, the external objects are represented as mental events. And that mental events are technically known as, remember? Vritti, Chitta Vritti. I am only watching Chitta Vritti. And what is the problem? I just get identified with Chitta Vritti. When I identified with Chitta Vritti, what is going to happen? All the problems of that Chitta Vritti, I have. So can I detach yourself and observe the Chitta Vritti properly? So for that, you need to understand that Atma. So Patanjali Yoga Sutra, the second 2, 3, and 4 sutra, if you listen, he brilliantly captures this. He tells, Yogaha Chitta Vritti Nirodha. Yoga means the ability to control your mental activities. When you are controlled, when the mental activities are in your hand, then it is Tada Drashtuhu Surupe Avasthana. Then you are in your real nature. Otherwise, what is the brilliant one? Vritti Sarupya Nidaritra. Otherwise, you will identify with the vrittis.
Yeah, theoretically speaking, would have been enlightened by today's class.
Correct. Theoretically, this is good.
Yeah.
But remember I was telling, right? This is paroksha anubhuti.
Yeah.
And how do we convert that paroksha anubhuti into aparoksha anubhuti? I already gave the tricks, right? You have to have the sadhana, chatushtaya sambandha, and otherwise adhikaratvam, the 4 adhikaratvam. And how do you gain that adhikaratvam? Through yoga. And what are that yoga? Karma yoga and upasana yoga. So this is a theoretical basis of the Vedanta from beginning to end. Of course, we have to come back and talk about the problem of identification and attachment. The problem is wrong identification with the body and the subtle body.
I think, it's how far we are for 8:28. So,
Yeah.
see, I mean, so clearly actually we went through all this, right?
Yeah.
And yet, the audience is left with a paroksha, right? So, I think you still have more to speak.
No,
Go ahead,
just
sorry.
there is a diagram.
Oh,
Just want to show that there is only one arm.
yeah. So that is actually puzzled me actually for many years. This is right. And see, we just go through so detailed, right? And yet we can't just get out of this the duality of thing, right? That is. So, however, number of Upanishads you go through, the commentaries you went through, either way, however many texts you through different ways each out, we won't get out of this paroksha anubhuti.
Correct.
Right? That is, the doership is still there in our mind. That is.
That's why without gaining that antakarna shuddhi,
Yeah.
and then the knowledge becomes clear. So it's very important, but it always starts with the theoretical knowledge. See, first you have to understand that there is the Gotri, and this is the way to go there. Now you have to take a journey, you will end up there. And no teacher can help that. It's each one of us. But I feel that this is no teacher had said this is just me telling. Even this theoretical knowledge, even though you haven't experienced it fully, it can give you a lot of strength. Because knowing that there is another dimension of life. Because if you do a little bit of contemplation, right, you will experience that. Meaning, typically, what exactly is the fears? One is the fear of death. So if you are completely convinced that essentially I'm not dying, that itself is going to give us a lot of strength. Second thing is that I quoted several examples. I quoted Swami Dayananda Saraswati, right? Means 2 weeks back of his samadhi, he was saying, 3 weeks back, he said, in 2-3 weeks you will hear the death of me. And just take it positively. That's it.
I think instead of doing the top-down approach, you have to spend more on the bottoms-up approach. In other words, we have to take the practical issues of us. That is, fear is probably the best one. That is, everyone has a fear, right? What is the root cause of this fear? That is, so we should take one specific example and just dig through that one only. That is,
Yes.
I think that's probably help us to get out of this hole.
Yep.
See what I mean? That is, what is the root cause of fear? That is, let's say, for example, someone loses their job, or some loved ones is gone, that is, or lost completely entire property. These things, right? No, one is gets scared, one is feared, right? Now, what is the attributes of this fear? What is the origin of that fear? That is, maybe that will help them put into the real context. That is
Right. But
what is
first they have to know this theory, right? So
Yeah.
then we can go deep into different dimensions. But next thing what we are going to talk is extremely important: the identification and attachment. So we saw the different dimensions of a jiva. Now, the thing is, where exactly we get identified and where exactly we get attached. Okay, so that's good. So we will stop here.
Why do you use the term borrowed consciousness?
Borrowed consciousness means it's kind of like a reflected consciousness, right? So you can say that your life or the existence is, means I can say that the sentiency of this computer is borrowed from the electricity. That's a common terminology used in Vedanta. They call it as Jivatma, and the other one, the real Atma as Paramatma. So when the Paramatma expresses itself through a body-mind complex or a physical body, subtle body complex, that time you feel that, okay, that has its independent existence. But that independent, the existence is borrowed by the Paramatma. That's why it is called borrowed consciousness. Any other
There's
questions?
only one.
There's only one Atma. That is the one that take home message from this sessions, because Atma is only one, souls are many, but and there is a difference between Atma and the soul, the so-called soul, because the Christian definition of soul is different. And to explain what exactly it is, right? What happens to the soul after the death as per the Christianity, and what is the difference here? Everything we discussed. Okay, great. So that's good. So we'll see you, most of the people, on Sunday. Keep that class.
Okay, answering your question, about the fear that you were talking about, that part is never going to go away, right? Because
No, it will go away.
no,
Absolutely.
no, because see, the thing is,
Yeah, yeah.
you're worried about your future, you're worried about your, how can that go away? You're worried about things that are not just you.